Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Social Studies class. This is your teacher, Mr. Clarke. Now, before we begin today's lesson, just a gentle reminder to all the viewers. Please ensure that you like and share the videos. Please ensure that you leave a comment in the comment section. And please ensure that you subscribe to the channel, right? And after you have subscribed, please ensure that you hit that notification bell so that you will be notified each time I post a new video. Now, for today's class, we are going to be looking at social issues and social problems. Now, under this topic, we will be looking at the difference between social issues and social problems. We will be giving a definition for social problems, and we will try as best as possible to outline the characteristics of social problems, as well as we will be listing some of the social problems that exist in our society. Right, now most persons normally use these terms to mean the same thing: social issues, social problems, right? But these are two different concepts and they can be separated in terms of their meaning. Right, now what is the difference between social issues and social problems? A social issue is usually something minor, right? While social problems are usually major situations, major conditions and behaviors, right? Now, when I use the term minor, I'm not talking in terms of seriousness, but rather in terms of its magnitude and its prevalence, right? So social issues are minor issues in terms of, how big they are, how widespread the problem is, how many persons are affected, or how common the problem is, or how often it happens, right? These things, if they don't happen often enough, they are regarded as social issues. If they are not widespread, right? If the problem is not a big problem, if many persons are not affected by the problem, then it is considered to be a social issue, right? Now, when it starts to affect the entire society, that is when it becomes a social problem. So social problems are basically started out as social issues, right? Or another way to say that is social issues lead to social problems. So as I said before, magnitude and prevalence are the two main factors that really separate these two concepts, right? So for example, teenage pregnancy is a social problem in Jamaica. I think we can safely say that teenage pregnancy affects the entire society. It affects the communities, it affects the schools, it affects basically everybody in society, right? So teenage pregnancy has implications on the society, so we can categorize it as a social problem, right? Because it is widespread. It is not something that is not that can be narrowed down to one community or one school or one home, right? It is happening everywhere. So basically, teenage pregnancy is a social problem. However, when we had our first case of a teenager getting pregnant, at that stage, it was a social issue, right? At that stage, it only affected probably one or two families the most. It only affected one community, right? It did not reach the stage where it had implications on the society at large. So at that stage, we would consider it as a social issue, right? Now it became a social problem rather when it started to escalate and to get bigger. When it started to affect many communities across the country, when it started to affect the entire society, right? That is when it became a social problem. We can also make reference to scamming. Scamming is a relatively new social problem. Yes, it has become a social problem because over the past maybe 5 to 10 years, we have seen where scamming, has gotten bigger and bigger each year, right? So more persons are being affected by scamming, so we can say that scamming is a social problem. However, if we should go back to the first case of scamming, when we had only one person being reported to have scammed somebody, at that stage it would have been a social issue, right? Because it only a few persons were affected. So it was an issue that needed to be dealt with, right? However, it grew until it reached the stage of becoming a social problem. So again, social issues may lead to social problems, right? And at this stage, I can safely say that not every social issue is a social problem. However, every social problem is a social issue. Now, as it relates to a definition for social problems are undesirable conditions and behaviors in society, right? And these behaviors and conditions usually lead to social disorganization. So that is the definition that I like to work with. And if you notice, the definition is very comprehensive in terms of covering conditions as well as behaviors, right? Because if we were to just narrow it down to behaviors, then we could not list something like poverty as a social problem, because poverty is a condition and not a behavior. Now, there are certain characteristics that we may use to identify social problems, right? The first characteristic, they are widespread, right? So usually a social problem is something, as we said, that affects a large number of persons. So they are widespread. And number two, they are unwanted. So it's not something that we want to happen. So it's a condition or a behavior that is unwanted or undesirable, right? Number three, they exist over a period of time. So social problems, as I said earlier, is not something that has just emerged, but something that would have existed for a good while, right? A long period of time. Right, so we are now going to list some examples of social problems that exist in our society. As I said earlier, we will not be looking at these in detail for this lesson, but in subsequent lessons we are going to choose some of them, and we are going to go in details for some of these social problems, right? Now, first social problem that we want to mention, teenage pregnancy. Second, street children, substance abuse, juvenile delinquency, sexually transmitted infections, child abuse, poverty, desertion, suicide, incest, domestic violence, human trafficking, inadequate care and concern of the aged and those with special needs. These are just some of the social problems that exist in our society. So basically, as I said earlier, we will be looking at some of them in detail, in further details, so you can stay tuned to see the videos that we will come out with as it relates to, specific social problems. So that is it for today. I hope that you would have learned something from this class, and I will see you in the next class.